Hello. This video is one that I didn't know if I wanted to make and wasn't sure how to make for a little while. But I'm just gonna put it here and let it sit. I've got a script for this video because I want to deal with this as much with as much nuance and honesty and stuff as I can. And yeah, I'd appreciate, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd appreciate your thoughts, actually. You'll see at the end. You'll see what I mean. God, my bed is stupid. It's friggin' destroyed. Okay, let's go. The position I found myself in 2023 was a position of great confusion. In 2022, I began to consider myself non-binary, but I ultimately felt that label wasn't quite right. So I went back to cisgender, and I stayed there for a little while. But then my internal perception shifted, and I had this feeling of, what if I didn't go far enough? So I dabbled with she, her, transgender, girl for a while. But that perception didn't last, and I ultimately reverted back to the default shortly after being socially ostracized for reasons I'm not going to get into that are not related to this. After I reverted back to the default, which is how I put it in my head, it's now about 2023, and regretfully, but unabashedly, I'm transphobic in this period of my life, which is not something that I perceived back then. I didn't see myself as transphobic, but looking back, I definitely was. My perception was that most, all, many, a lot of trans people were in the same position as me. A brief period of experimentation, granted of varying length, followed by a sudden and rapid reversion back to the default. And I kept that position for over a year. It wasn't until mid to late 2024 that I discovered this YouTuber Jamie Dodger, and out of pure curiosity, I clicked on one of his videos. I watched it, and I went, So I watched a few more, and I went, oh. I spent a few days, maybe a week or two, reflecting, and I ultimately came to the acceptance and understanding that no, most trans people are not like that. And I was the exception. And I was the outlier. And I largely abandoned any transphobia I had then and there. I don't think I ever truly believed what I said. I never liked J.K. Rowling. Moving on. That being said, certain things, certain feelings lingered. Because I just couldn't shake the thought that something was wrong due to my prior experiences. Yes, most people were not like me. But why was I like me? However, I moved on. Life keeps going, the world keeps turning, time keeps pushing. I held on to my generally liberal perception for a while that trans people are all right and are valid, and we shouldn't judge them based on that. We should judge them based on their actions. You know? And I held on to that for a while. But it would have been about this time last year, uh, during the runs of my first three Life series and my introduction to the Life series community during Covert Life, Unity Life, and Mutation Life, and a little bit after that as well. Um, that I realized that people in that space that I knew and I respected and I hoped considered me friend, some of those people began to come out as trans. And some of those people were openly non-binary or openly trans beforehand. And that forced me to confront head on that trans people are not some distant concept. They are my friends, they are my colleagues, they are my community. And it was also around that time that I realized that a real life friend of mine was also trans. Which I didn't know because no one told me. Wonder why? Yeah. And yes, by that point, particularly by the middle and end of the year, I was no longer any remnant of transphobic. I didn't have a transphobic bone in my body. I was a trans ally through and through. I want to make that expressly clear. I was and I am a trans ally. Alright? But it was at the start of this year that I began questioning myself again. I had fought through the perception of what I had believed a few years ago, and I started to think, what if all of that was internalized? So it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, that I, just to a few people, came out as non-binary, which at the time was the label I believed resonated with me the most. It was the label I felt the most comfortable with. I'm not quite so sure anymore, but that's maybe a story for another day. However, that label, that perception of myself is already drifting, and not back to the cisgender he him concept, but towards the transgender she her concept. That's what I'm starting to consider once again. And I want to make this expressly clear. Possibly on account of my prior experience, this is not a coming out video. I'm not coming out as trans. I'm not saying that I am. And I could very well go back and say, I've thought about it, and I'm not. But as it stands, the thought is there. It is in my brain, and it is eating away a little bit. So bear with me as I figure myself out. There's a Discord server that I'm in that is full of trans people. I think it's expressly for that. It's called The Egg or something. Thanks, Nemesis. And if I begin to feel comfortable, I may bring this up there. If anyone, I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts because yeah. But I I'm not asking for your advice, but if you have any thoughts, it would be greatly appreciated. The only reason I'm telling you guys this is because I don't want to do this alone again. A couple of years ago, I did it alone, and I don't know. Yeah, anyway. I figured I'd tell you, I've got this channel for a reason. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, I hope you understand, and goodbye.